I'll introduce you as well to Sarah. Sarah, I'll pass over to you quickly, just to introduce yourself too, as my co-host for this evening, and also a quick introduction to the Power MBA, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. My name is Sarah Nicolas, and I work in public relations and institutional partnership at the Power MBA. And I mean, I could make an introduction, but with us is Rafa, who is one of the founders, and no better person than him to be the one. So please, Rafa.
Hi, hello everyone. First of all, on behalf of the whole team, thanks for the invitation. I feel very proud of being here, sharing with you our experiences. I have to apologize because my wife had to receive an easy surgery, and I'm at the hospital. So I'm on the room. So I don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe someone with the dinner is gonna come, or the nurse or the doctor. So I have to apologize. First of all, I have here like my studio. I took off from the wall a picture that I didn't like, and here I am. So sorry for the situation. I'm very happy for being here. So totally open to answer or to share with you anything you want.
That's it. Thank you, Rafa. We cannot doubt your commitment. So thank you, and please send our wishes to your wife. We hope she's doing okay as well. So
thank you very much. The first thing she told me is, Rafa, don't talk too much. You talk too much. So so she's now here doing a very strong control on me.
Rafa, I think you're talking too little today. You should introduce a bit what the Power MBA is for those that don't know about it.
Well, we are part of we feel very aligned with Startup Green, with the values and also with the vision and with the commitment with entrepreneurship. We just try to do things different, maybe better for the customers. We started thinking why learning about business it's so important, and why it's so difficult, why it's so expensive, why you have to spend part of you have to stop your life for 1.5 years. So we decided to switch the model, and instead of selling just a few programs for a very high price, selling all that knowledge and all that inspiration to many people on a very low price, but with a huge value. And we started 3 years ago, and right now we have 50,000 people, 50,000 students all around the world in 68 countries. We started with the Spanish, with the countries where the mother language is Spanish, and just a few months ago, we opened with a global program to many countries, and we had involved amazing people: the co-founder of Netflix, the co-founder of Tesla, Satham, Waze, Whole Foods, many entrepreneurs, top entrepreneurs from Germany, from UK. So we are trying to share all that knowledge with a methodology based in microlearnings, 10, 15 minutes a day, so you can do it whenever you want on a very convenient way, and for a no-brainer price. This is the Power MBA. It's a movement, and we are trying to build a community where curious people who want to change things, who want to improve an industry, want to learn. And this is what we are doing very proudly and very happy. More than we are right now, just to give you some more info. Just 1 second, please. Just to give you some more info, we are more than 200 people working on the company. Our growth had been exponential, and part of that growth had been, and that scaling had happened on a very difficult situation with COVID. And I know more than half of our team right now. I haven't met them before in my life in person. It's something incredible what it is happening right now.
That's it. Thank you, Rafa. Hey, it's great to have you here. And of course, we also have two more on the panel who I'm really excited to hear from. So I thought it'd be good to come to you, Melinda and Felix, if that's okay, to introduce yourselves. You'll do a much better job than I possibly could. So I'll come to you, Melinda, first. So yeah, quick introduction, and then we'll come to you, Felix, if that's okay.
Super. Hello, everybody. My name is Melinda Matthews-Clarkson. I am the CEO of CodeClan. It's the Digital Skills Academy in Scotland. It is a not-for-profit organization, and we teach people who want to be career changers into technology, such as programming and data analytics. But my background, I've got 28 years in the software industry and been around technology since actually probably my first real job. And I'm not a tech. So in Scotland, we have a thing called no wrong path. And I have no right path to become a CEO of a technology company when you don't have technology as an MBA or even as a Bachelor's of Science. I have a degree in education. In marketing and business, and I'm looking forward to having this chat today with everybody. I have lived in Plittersdorf, Bonn, Germany. I currently live in Scotland, and I'm actually from Connecticut. So who's ever in Boston, I hope you're warm.
Wow.
Fantastic. Thank you, Melinda. It's great to have you. And over to you, Felix.
Super. Thank you so much for having me. It feels like I'm being introduced to this new community that I've never heard of before, and it feels like everyone knows each other, which is super cute. So I'm very happy to be here today. My name is Felix. I have a background in business and politics. I think the theme of today is quite fitting because out of university, I started a company in the education, in the EdTech space. Venture-backed, did this for about 4 years, moved from Munich to Berlin, at some point decided to sell the company to one of our closest competitors, which then a year later got sold to a company called Stepstone, that some of you may know. It belongs to the Axel Springer corporation, and then decided to join the dark side of things as an investor at a company called H Capital, previously called Holzbring Ventures. The dark side is a lot of fun. So I'm very, very happy to share my learnings and our views, and been investing for now 3.5 years, covered logistics startup, healthcare spaces, and obviously given my experience at tech startups. There's a funny backstory because when I joined HV, I kind of swore to myself, I'd never invest in EdTech again because I thought it's such a difficult sector to invest in from a VC, a venture capital perspective. But I think over the course of the last 12 months or so, this changed dramatically. We've done an investment in EdTech. I'm on the board of a company called Simple Club, which was announced, I think, a month ago. So I'm super happy to be here and looking forward to speaking to you all.
That's it. Thank you, Peter. It's good to have the light and the dark sides, both perspectives, of course. So excellent. Well, thank you to the panel. I'm honestly absolutely delighted to have all three of you here. I think we're going to struggle to ask all of our questions, which is always a good sign. But I thought where we'd begin, if that's okay, is coming back to your own backgrounds and your passion for education. And we could also say EdTech, of course, specifically. So in no particular order at all, I'll come to you, Melinda, first. So where, for you, Melinda, did your passion for education come from?
I am a product of 2 teachers. So both scientists, and an only child. So I'd have to say that everything in my house was learning. Even as a little kid, every object was labeled with, the 3x5 cards on how to learn how to spell and how to learn how to read. So all my life it's been that way. I also, I've always been a curious individual, as I think an only child tends to be. And I used to get kicked out of class a great deal because I would kept constantly asking why. So my background into education, and I now have also have a degree in education, is curiosity.
That's it. Thank you. I think that's something we'll be coming back to, actually. Oh, great answer. Thank you. I'll come to you, Rafa, if you're ready. I'm conscious that you might be kind of dragged away at any moment. Yes. So Rafa, for you, where did this passion for education start?
I've been a business consultant for many years. I got my MBA, and when I finished my MBA, I just started thinking, if all that investment in time and money was good enough for my objectives and was going to help, what's really going to help me? And I just did that question to myself, and for many years I had no answer. But during all my period as a business consultant, I was trying to identify. I was identifying that people who really had a strong knowledge about something and a strong academical, not academical. When you have the concepts clear, you take better decisions. And I started wondering, why not? Why don't we do something easier for people? But previous to that, I didn't have any kind of curiosity about education. I have to be totally transparent. It's just what I've been seeing during all these years and my own experience when I realized that maybe things could be done on a different way. And we started like that. We didn't have like a kind of, something from the beginning, or it was something that it happened.
Thank you, Rafa. Fantastic. Come to you, Felix, as well. What's your thoughts, Felix? Where did this start from?
So I think first and foremost, those were two fantastic answers. So the bar is set pretty high. I think, like, trying to keep it short, I think if you think about doing something education, it's always about democratizing access. It can be at small scale, whether it's, in your private school and you're giving access to the tutoring materials that, not all the students had, to democratizing access to educational materials that maybe other countries, other people didn't have. And I think that's very, very meaningful, which in other industries you just don't have. I mean, that's a very bad example, but if you can start the next Amazon for socks, and it could be a great business, could have great economics, but I think at the end of the day, after, a year or two, you ask yourself, why are you in it? And, the team also feels that. So I think education, specifically these days, combines kind of the opportunities commercially as well as from a societal perspective. So I think that's what's driving it. And I think that's also like why I'm so excited about what's happening today.
That's it. Thank you, Felix. That makes 3 excellent answers to start with. So over to you, Sarah.
Yeah. And I see there is a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, and all of you guys are somehow one. So I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to those that are thinking of starting their own business, or maybe change industries or enter into any specific ones? What would be the risk that you would recommend people to take or not to in this case? Maybe we can start with you, Melinda, just to follow the same flow.
I'm sorry. Ask the question again. I was thinking you were.
Yeah, totally fine. No, I mean, I'm sure. I mean, you mentioned before you have a role as a CEO, right? But before you went in education. So one of the questions that we got from the public was what advice will you give to people that are thinking of starting their own business or changing to a different industry? What risk would you recommend people to take or not to?
So in the risk, one of the things is the balance between the benefit to the client. One of the things I've found in right now in education, especially with the COVID and all, let me just pull it to right now, is we sit there and go, of course this education is going to be great. Of course learning how to use data analytics is going to, make your career buzz and be amazing. And you could get a job anywhere having data analytics on your CV, on your resume. But I can continue to sell the benefits of this offering. But I learned that their risk levels of, wait a minute, I've got to spend 3 months doing this. How am I going to feed myself and my cat? You know, can I work? Can I not work? The balance benefit from the customer point of view, I think, was something that was, I had to really think hard, because men and women have different risk levels, and how do we get more women, and all those type of things. So one was the balance of risk. And the other one is, and this I learned in my years at IBM, you always have to map out the customer, or in my case, the student journey. What's the student journey? From the moment they meet you, or see your ad, or see your brand, to the day they leave you, or maybe come back. So Power MBA, it's got a great image, it's got a great brand. What is my experience with it? And how do I continually enhance that experience along the way? We sometimes forget that, and we think about our product or our offering, and not how the journey and the experience is going to be. Because today we all know it's all about the experience, especially in a virtual world.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that, Melinda. Rafa, maybe you can go next. You get this question all the time, right? Like, you get asked by your students, like, what's the advice would you give me if I'm thinking to start a business? So what do you tell them?
In my experience, the most important, the most common mistake that someone who wants to start a company usually is that the main reason of failure is that you fell in love with your idea, and you don't really care that that idea is going to solve a problem to anyone, or it is going to be important for someone. The most critical moment is the very beginning, when someone is ready to pay for your service or for your product. And it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter you consider that you have the best idea in the world. If people are not able to pay or doesn't want to pay for it. And that usually happens like 95% of the time. Why? Because you really don't know what problem are you solving. So it's not my advice. This is written. We teach all this, but we had experience in our own every single time that we didn't take in consideration if it is really important for customer, if someone is going to be able to pay for it. We always went wrong on that project.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Rafa. Felix, in your case, I guess it will make sense to know what advice will you give yourself a few years back when you were launching your own business?
Not start a company with 7 co-founders. That would be a very practical advice for my situation. I think building a bit on what Rafa said, I think and there's this slogan, I don't know who said it, that ideas don't matter. It's all about the execution. And I get a lot of, early founders coming to me and saying, I have this amazing idea, but I can't share it with you. And I think at that point already they are lost somehow, because I think the idea itself needs to be iterated and talked about and, sharpened along the way. And then on the second note, get it to market, get it validated, see, whether you can find somebody paying for it, see whether if you can find that one person paying for it, whether you can find a second person. And then I think at some point you get 10 customers or people to pay for it. And I think once you're there, you already have something. And then I think what I also see a lot of people struggle, even in my close friends struggle with, I think there's a very tricky point in time between having an idea and calling yourself a founder. I don't know, of the group who felt that, but I think there's this time where you don't know whether you're crazy because you're working on an idea that, all the time tells you it's shit, up to the point where you actually get, your first proper customers or users using the platform. And I think it's, at least in the ecosystem that I live in and that I know, the beautiful thing is that it changed where you essentially as a person don't lose if you spend a couple of weeks, a couple of months trialing a product, because everybody, at the end, even if it does fail, will love the experience, will love the insights, will love the expertise you're bringing along to his or her company. So that's kind of the advice I would give to people.
Amazing. Thank you, Felix.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you. So on the topic of advice, I thought I'd mix it up a bit of a slightly quick fire question. So I know Rafa's had to head off just for now. So I'll be coming to you, Melinda and Felix. And this is actually about skills and learning a new skill. And I wanted to kind of keep it concise if it's possible. But I'll come to you, Melinda, first, if that's okay. How would you approach learning a new skill? Do you have, say, and I know this is an oversimplification, but say 1 to 2 techniques for learning a new skill? What's your thoughts on it?
Immersion, collaboration, and presentation or usage. So I do think when you're learning a new skill, trying to do it, an hour on a Tuesday when the kids are jumping all, not going to work. You've got to immerse yourself in it. Whether it's just in your room quietly, the book, like yoga, whatever, you got to immerse yourself in it. You've got to collaborate. You got to hear, kind of like what Felix just said there, like if you can't share your learning, you can't tell somebody, you can't collaborate with somebody around it, then you're not learning it, and then you're not passionate about it. And lastly, then you've got to present it or use it. So many times we go and learn, take a class, and then we don't practice it, and then the learning's gone, right? It's just in the back. It's an awareness, not a learned skill. So those are my 3.
Thank you, Melinda. Epic. I know we'll be coming back to, hopefully, time permitting, sharing with others. So I'd love to kind of dive into that more from a team perspective. So over to you, Felix. What for you, Felix, if it was 1, 2, say 3 techniques would you recommend for learning a new skill?
I'm not 100% sure whether you like what I say, because I think it's against best practices. So I have a very strong there's a very strong difference in how I learn if it's intrinsic versus extrinsic, right? Whether I tell myself that I need to learn something and then, I really can't motivate myself. And then sometimes there's things that I just want to learn. And for me, what works is competition. And that's very personal, right? I think different people react to different things, but I know that if I'm starting to get competitive against my family, a friend, like a colleague, say chess, and, I get the sense that he's better at it, I really immerse myself in it and I learn, and it's intrinsic learning. So I think it's about finding this one thing that you really like doing and then immersing yourself into it and finding that maybe you call it hack that gets you to that intrinsic point. And then also acknowledging that I think as a person, you can't learn all the skills all the time. I really don't think that's how we should be as individuals.
I like that. No, I think it's a really good point. I think that, for some people, it's different motivations work in different ways. So thank you, Felix. Excellent. Back to you, Sarah, if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to this, and this is like leaving a bit what we discussed, but it's very much related, right? I'm sure we are struggling to focus in this COVID situation, like working remotely and, having to do like all these like live webinars. How do you deal with this situation? For example, Rafa, how do you tackle like working remotely? And maybe you can share a bit of like, how do you stay productive during these times?
For us, it has been something like living or dying. When you're scaling globally, in that precise moment, something terrible start happening, and there is no other option. You have to, adaptation is, it's, or you really adapt to the situation, or you die. So we did it quite naturally, and I get used to pretty easy. And right now we have been without offices. I don't know all of you what is your current situation, but we have been Salanos. We have been without an office since March, and we came back to a small office because we are working right now in squads and on a different way, and we have been working quite well. We have a lack of culture, of energy, of friendship, of experience, and that's why we think it's not going to be sustainable on the long term on just working from home because people just get bored. We are all quite upset. But I would say that pretty well, maybe better that I thought that this could happen. And I think that all these had accelerated 5 or 7 years, or maybe more, the way people just work and collaborate, and many things are gonna change, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I joined the Power MBA during the lockdown, so I didn't have an office for so long. And I have to say, I have never been a company that was so productive, like working remotely. It's so much that now, like, I decided not to go to the office this week because I'm so used to like working remotely that I find myself being much more productive when alone. Melinda, what about you? Like, how do you keep productive these days?
This was a tough one because pre-COVID, in my past jobs, I've worked from home and executive levels, senior vice presidents and that stuff. And then when I became the CEO of this small entrepreneurial type company, things really changed because you get when you're in an entrepreneurial type company and you're the top, your hands are in everything, right? I mean, there's some days I'm worried about if there's milk in the fridge, and other days I'm working about the strategic direction 3 years out. So one of the things that COVID has forced me to do is to be present every day. That has been actually probably a very good self-awareness lesson, that instead of multitasking and having 6 screens and the phone and the this and the that, trying to be present, because it's helping my staff keep the noise out, right? So in that, what we've done is we've made sure that most of the harder meetings, the one that you've got to use most of your brain and it doesn't suck all the energy out of you, are in the mornings. Or like for me, I'm really good at 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So I've made the calendar work for me of when my energy is up, instead of having my calendar dictate to me what to do it. So kind of changing the way you work towards your energy so that you can keep the noise out and stay focused has been one. And the other one right now is just being present in the day. And so my weekends are all about long-term vision. So there you go.
Yeah, that works. Felix, what about you?
So I think there's 2 dimensions for me personally and professionally, because we are working with a lot of companies and we see them go through the lockdown and the struggle, and we really see a difference in how companies and organizations react to it. And I think to some extent you can put it on that person, the CEO, the C-level team, the management team doing a better or worse job. But I think what's really driving the dividing line, so to speak, is whether the organization got momentum. So I think if you are in a company that's going great, like probably like with you, Melinda and Rafa, what it sounds like, it's going great. And I think the company has momentum and you're hiring a lot of people and sales are up and all of that. I think that's helping organizations being glued together, even though they don't see each other, they're getting a lot of people. I think that momentum really serves as a very good glue. And then we have other organizations like Flix Mobility, for example, where they're essentially being forced to go out of business, not out of business for the long term, but have 0 revenue over, the course of a month. And I think it's much more difficult then to force an organization to be productive at that scale when it's 1,000 people plus. So I think that's one dimension. And then for me personally, I'm experimenting a lot with what works and what doesn't, just to share one thing that worked and one thing that didn't. What really worked is I'm doing a lot of meetings over the phone while walking. That works greatly, and I can only recommend that, both in person and over the phone. What didn't work is because I was struggling with calling it a day. I don't know, like, how about you guys, but like, when do you start a day and when do you call a day if you're in home office? So I started to drink a beer whenever I called the day. And then I think in week 2, I felt like I'm an anonymous alcoholic. And then I stopped because my girlfriend said, Felix, you can't drink 3 beers every night. So I said, okay, maybe that's a bad way to call a day. So that didn't work. But I think you have to be a bit more deliberate with your day, have to plan a bit more. than just going to work and seeing what happens and what doesn't.
So I want to interject here because something that Felix said I think is really important to what Rafa said, is that COVID has made us split up our families or our teams or our connection. At Code Clan, I decided not to furlough anybody. We just bit the bullet and we all took a pay cut because I refused to let anybody go. And that energy has just carried forward, and we are a team, kind of like, through this mess. And as Rafa said, that energy that you don't gain or you do gain when you get together is difficult when you've got split shifts or you can't do it. And then what Felix said here is everybody is exhausted from Zooming. Mm-hmm. And when I get my guys on the phone and say, hey, let's not Zoom, let's just get on the phone and go for a walk with your dog, they come up a whole level of, yeah, let's do it, and you got to change it about now. I think it's a great thing to talk to people in different fashions and communicate and pull them together. That's the only way the energy happens.
Wow, Rafa, I'm taking note of this one. Tomorrow I don't have any calls, we only walk.
Well, I'm totally aligned with you and with Felix. I started walking. Well, you have to see my body. I don't practice sports, and I started walking an average of 20 kilometers from April to June, half June, July. Here in Spain, it gets very, very hot, and I just walk like for about 7-8 hours every day, and it was great. It was great. So I'm totally. I also discovered that.
That's awesome. I'm feeling slightly guilty that we're hosting this on a Zoom sitting down. So we'll take a note, yeah.
But some people couldn't stand up because we'd see PJs.
Yeah, I'm wearing shorts. I'm not gonna lie. I remember all.
Also, I feel the people in Portugal would have a bit of an advantage here.
Hi.
That's true. I can go to the beach.
Oh, excellent. I see Scott's actually jogging in place, so he's showing all of us up. Good job, Scott. I'm very impressed. Anyway, and I think this is a good segue actually into the next question. And I think this comes down to commitment potentially, but also motivation. So if we think about entrepreneurs, and I guess the real theme of this evening is how as an entrepreneur you can learn, the importance of education. What would you as a panel say to somebody who is maybe skeptical the benefits they'll get from learning, especially if they're running a business, if they're working until 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., what would you say to them to encourage them? In terms of order, I'll come to you, Felix, first, actually, if that's okay.
Can you elaborate on the example, exactly how it would happen? So a person that is running a business deliberately shares to me, look, I'm done. I don't need to learn anything. And luckily, very rarely do I meet these people. And I'm like proactively trying to avoid working with these people because I think and specifically as a VC, so as a venture capitalist, you understand that you essentially know nothing. And I'm I have meetings with people in industries I've never heard about. And literally all I'm trying to do is figuring out what the right question is without, embarrassing myself because I've never heard about the industry. And the other guy usually is an expert. So I think this desire to learn is one thing, and the desire to improve and being coachable is one thing that we are really looking for when we choose a team to back. So I luckily enough don't have enough people in my circle, both professionally and personally, that don't want to learn. So I'm not good at advice.
No, I think it's a really good answer in itself, Felix. The fact that you, as a VC, are looking out for people who are learning. I think that in itself is, yeah.
Just to be precise, whether somebody is coachable for us is one of the crucial factors of investing.
It's an excellent point. I like that a lot. over to you, Rafa. Of course, you'll have some strong opinions on this. What's your thoughts?
I have a very, very strong opinion on this. I consider that if you learn, you take small good decisions on your day, and it's the base to success. It's the base for succeeding. People think that having a very good professional career or having a very good business is just hardworking, networking. I think that is essential. You need that, but it's not enough. We are doing a good job in the Power MBA, not because we are very smart or because we are more clever than others. It's because we just apply what very, very smart people put on a book, and that is what we do. And when you realize the power of learning, you have many more opportunities. This is not about hard working. This is not only about a huge commitment. This is not about an incredible idea. This is about knowing what you have to do, and you only learn where you can do it only by experience, and you will maybe go wrong, or just keep on learning and reading and learning and studying and watching a conference or a YouTube video and just always being curious.
I think you touched on a really good point, Rafa, which I think I've heard often, which is the quickest route is to learn from others' mistakes, but also from their experience, which I think is similar to your point. So thank you. And what about you, Melinda? I imagine you'll have some real strong views on this as well.
I consider learning part of the self-awareness of my journey in life. So I don't, whether it's SaaS applications or how to use certain tools, or really learning something deep, like maybe financial concepts of a new startup. The more I learn, the more I get to have some self-reflection of what I don't know. But also, if you get to learn with others, you get to see somebody else's perspective on something. And the more perspectives you can see, the broader your mind can be. And as a leader and an entrepreneur, if you don't understand the audience or you don't understand the different perspectives out there in life, again, you're just going to have that great one product and it's not going to sell or it's not going to grow, because you need self-awareness and others and understanding others. So I love to learn. Actually, I'd like to not go to, well, every day is a learning day in my world. Every day is a school day.
I love that. Three amazing answers there. So thank you, guys. I knew you'd all have a great perspective on it. Cool. Over to you, Sarah. That's okay.
Yeah, so getting more into the EdTech sector, I wanted to know, well, for example, Rafa, what's been the one biggest change in the industry you've noticed? Like, what do you think it has changed due to the COVID situation?
It's a very good question, Sarah. I think that COVID is not going to change everything. It's just going to be an accelerator of behaviors, and maybe it's generating a positive social impact. And just to be more specific on my answer, I would say that people who didn't consider the online education as a real chance or opportunity to learn, they had to do it. It was mandatory for them, and they would maybe never have tried before. And they realized that it's a very, very good and efficient way to learn for long life education, and on a very, very efficient way. And I would say that after this, education is not going to be online. Education is going to be face-to-face only. It's going to be some kind of blended. And that's in my opinion the biggest impact, the acceleration and the adoption on people who were not believers of this of online education.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking at the sales of the Power MBA, you kind of get that also. Felix, you said before that you didn't want to get into EdTech, investments, but somehow you're there, right? So have you seen any changes in the type of companies that pitch to you, or like how if they've been affected by this COVID situation so far?
Yes, and I'm a bit angry at Rafa because the acceleration and adoption is my answer, and he stole it. so no, I think he's like, I would just reiterate a lot of his points. I think what really changed is you went from having to pitch people why digital education has to exist to making this mandatory. Like I had a chat this morning with my sister who's a teacher, and she showed me her setup for school. And it literally looks like she's a Twitch streamer because she has one laptop here and then she's running the chat of the pupils, and she has Microsoft Teams, I think. And then she has OneNote on her iPad, and like she's multitasking all of these at the same time. So I think essentially what COVID did, as Rafa said, it didn't change everything and it will not change everything, but it massively accelerated the adoption and acceptance of digital learning across kind of all the subsegments of the education industry, from kind of preschool to lifelong learning. And that's not only nice words, but that's really what we see in terms of the payment, the willingness to pay in people. And that's what's driving kind of the commercial traction, a lot of the EdTech cases that are coming to us day by day.
We're glad to know you guys are aligned. Melinda, are you also in the same line?
I would love to see the research that can happen now over this last year, because just to give you an idea, I had 175 people on campus, okay, on the Monday. And by the Wednesday, we went remote. And as the CEO, I didn't sit there and have a strategic plan or a risk assessment or here's all the tools or anything like that. I allowed the team to just use their own mindset and their technology and just do it. Now I'm on campus a bit, we're blended a bit, we have just remote cohorts, we have only campus cohorts. So now I have a nightmare of delivery models, okay? Because like Felix, you said, think about how much it costs. Now I got to kid out everybody's home, right? You know, that kind of a thing. And it's an interesting model because my education is 3 months or 4 months. So this is a full immersive, but between the haves and the have-nots now, oh my goodness. So the schools, let's say that the grammar schools or the primary schools who can deliver something to children, and the ones that can't, they're just sending home a workbook and saying, figure it out with your parents. You know, there's a lot of private schools that are making, you know, £20,000 a year sending your child to this name brand school who now can't educate because they haven't embraced technology. And it is really mind-boggling when you sit back. And also in Scotland, I've been very involved in this, how many people don't have internet connection at home, don't have a laptop, don't have an iPad. And so that infrastructure cost for a society in general has been quite overwhelming. So I can't wait for, you know, McKinsey or some big or maybe small organization to come around and look at the education and technology and what we just saw here, because there's going to be children and adults who are going to accelerate and just keep going. And there's some now that are probably a year or two behind.
True. That's definitely a super interesting approach.
So it's a huge topic, isn't it? And the topic specific of adoption, I think, is really interesting, because I know, Melinda, we were speaking about this briefly about, I think it was hesitation from middle and upper management specifically to digital. And I thought I'd kind of reframe this question, and I know it's going to be quite broad, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as a panel again. And it's a bit of a cheap question, but it's the classic comparison to Silicon Valley, to the true innovators in America. And yeah, take this in whatever direction you'd like to. But I'll come back to you, Melinda, first, if that's okay. And I'd love to ask you about your thoughts on bridging the gap between Europe and Silicon Valley in terms of adoption, if that makes sense. Is there anything we can do better to bridge that gap?
So I think COVID has done, there are some benefits to the COVID situation. In my role before this one, I had a global job, and each culture has a different way of managing how they communicate, how they collaborate, right? It's very cultural in nature. Many a times I could be in Paris and I'd have to introduce the guy that sat on that side of the room to that side of the room because the collaboration didn't happen unless it was over a cup of coffee or an espresso or something. So America in Silicon Valley, you just get on with it. That they kind of just keep trying and practicing and failing and trying and practice and failing. And they're not scared to say they don't know something. And I find in some other cultures, some leaders in, let's say, middle management or executive management, because they don't understand either the technology or something, they kind of poo-poo it, and then the organization doesn't embrace it and run. And so that was the conversation I was having with Declan about how the cultures now, maybe because of COVID and working from home, and Felix doesn't know when to end his day, so he's working harder, you know, and that kind of becomes this trying harder, pushing harder, doing more. And I think we will get to where the Silicon Valley kind of has that mindset.
Thank you, Melinda. Excellent perspective. And what about you, Felix? What's your thoughts on this gap?
Again, I'm a bit uncertain with my answers because if you refer to a gap, to me, it associates something that we necessarily need to bridge. And like, I'm not 100% certain that I think we should imitate Silicon Valley as, you know, other ecosystems. I think there's good and there's ugly to it. And I don't want to go into detail, but I think to an extent, we can learn from the ecosystem. I think what Melinda says, just try it until it works, and, you know, pitch it until, you know, people can't hear it any longer. I think that's to an extent that makes sense. But I think there's also something that's very true to the different cultures around the world. And I would hate to see this being lost along the process. So I think, like, I don't necessarily like the question of let's bridge something because we need to close a gap. And I think that's what's happening. And I think that's what Melinda said is through COVID, workforces, specifically highly educated workforces, got more remote, got more decentralized. And I think it gets to a point where you have to ask yourself, you know, if I work at home 3 days, 4 days, 5 days a week, do I need to stay in San Francisco where I pay, you know, $2,000 for a not so nice flat? Or can I move to Berlin where I have this really nice room or like nice flat and it's, you know, half or like a third of the price? And I think that's what will balance organizations. And I think you can actually see the ecosystems that I work in most of Europe really evolving in terms of access to skill, access to capital, access to ideas to an extent, and more also of the larger industrial corporations really diving and zooming into this ecosystem. So I think we're getting there. It just takes time. And I could go on and tell you what I think will make the cut, but I
got it there. No, thank you for this. No, you're absolutely right. I think you're so right to say that, you know, different is not necessarily less. So a really good perspective. What do you think, Rafa? What's your thoughts on this?
I have nothing to add here. I think that they answer very well, and I'm fully agree.
Awesome. Very good.
Yeah. Melinda, I wanted to ask you mentioned before that you were waiting for McKinsey or maybe a smaller, hopefully, consulting firm to come up with like that kind of a study that shows a bit like what's gonna happen, right? Because like we did like create a gap here between those that were able to adapt and those that didn't have the resources or the knowledge or the abilities to do so. So how would you say is a good way to kind of like share the knowledge among the team, right? Like, I mean, now that we are all being like somehow like learning online, I don't know if you can maximize the learning experience for the benefit of the rest of the team somehow.
There's even a question here in your thing about homeschooling, right? So I think in general, education before had the haves and the have-nots, right? But it was typically more money-based. Now I think it's technology-based. And so let's say we take Felix's thought here, and I'm not going to be in San Francisco anymore, but I've decided I'm going to live in the beautiful mountains of the Andes. Well, if I don't have a 5G or 4G or 3G at least, I might not be educated then. Right? So there's a whole different parameters now that technology is packaged part of education. Before, education was you went to school and your teachers were in front and there was chalkboards and whiteboards and that kind of thing. And they used technology to enhance the education. Now technology is the core of education. And I think that fundamental change, and a lot of teachers and principals or headmasters or whatever you call it in your culture, I think they're going to struggle with how, let's say COVID, we all have a wonderful vaccine and we're dancing in the streets and we've got carnival and all the wonderful things. The next thing's coming down the road, right? I mean, we'll see it again. So we have to learn from this about how technology and education go hand in hand. And
Definitely.
Yeah, I think there's some poor countries along this.
Yeah, that's definitely a very interesting point. You mentioned that before it was more on like a money kind of thing, right? It was financial, and now it's more on like technologies. It's not even anymore about like this, I don't know, like very expensive education, but actually make sure that you have the technology in place, because even like some of the main very expensive universities weren't ready for this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, please, Melinda. I interrupt you because I didn't hear you on time. Please.
Also the international aspect of education. So if you go to universities, University of Berlin is filled with international students. How does that international aspect, where we can come together and collaborate in the new world through technology, does that now just broaden it, or does it make it smaller? Do we become one world? Which would be great.
Very interesting approach. We'll see what happens. Rafa, I'm sure you have a strong opinion on this, right? Because that's the main mission of the Power MBA.
Yeah, I think that depending on the topic, of course, it's not the same to learn or the problem about if you want to be a doctor, or if you want to learn about marketing. But I would say that even more things are, the more important thing is attitude, that you want to do something, and technology it's a very strong driver to bring up incredible knowledge to any single person in the world. And the very, very, very good knowledge, it's democratizing so quickly, and also building very strong a very good and a very strong network. Is not depending anymore on if you were born on a rich country or if you were born on a very, very good family. Of course, the social ecosystem, it's a very important accelerator, but you can achieve things right now that maybe 10, 12 years ago was totally impossible.
Definitely. Felix, what do you think about it?
Just two things said. I think on touching a bit on what Melinda said, I think it's going to be crucial that this is a two-sided problem or like an opportunity. I think technology is an opportunity to learning or to education, but I think it's also a challenge because we need to build that infrastructure, right? And I think that's on the application layer. I think you have us and you have you guys as entrepreneurs really building the applications. And I think on an infrastructure layer, you need to have states and politicians really making the investment infrastructure. And without the infrastructure investment, I think it will collapse unless we have all the happy vaccines and, you know, we never have a pandemic ever again. And so I think it's kind of, and that also referring to Rafa, but I think the successful cases, whether it's in countries or whether it's global, will all be at the intersection of, you know, strong infrastructure, strong hybrid models where it's technology, but it's also teachers. I think because learning is so individual, you also need to kind of immerse the teachers or whatever a teacher is at that point into the equation, you know, to really be successful.
Yeah, very well structured, Felix. I think the point was made very clear.
So for the final question, because I had a brief question, which I think you've all answered very well, which is actually thinking about the future and the new standards in terms of learning, you know, whether or not it's remote or in person. I'm going to steal your question, Sarah, if that's okay, to wrap up this part. So is that a quick fire one just to think ahead to say 12 months time? So like you said, Melinda, we got the great news about the vaccine, you know, hopefully soon we'll be having carnivals and non-socially distant events everywhere. So my ask to wrap up would be, what is your one wish for 12 months time on this topic of education? So I'll come to you, Melinda, first, if that's okay.
This is a big one because I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball in 12 months. You know, 12 months from now, I'd like to be on the beach in Portugal taking my yoga class I was supposed to be taking today. In education, I think what Felix just said is that governments, countries, and or businesses are going to have to invest in the infrastructure to make this all work. It's got to happen. Whether you're talking about little kids learning to lifelong learners, which we need to have for productivity and GDP and all of that, that infrastructure, it's got to have a lot of money or focus to make that happen. So 12 months from now, I'd like to see 5G everywhere.
Awesome answer. Great starting point. Over to you, Felix. What's your wish?
Yeah, we don't took, you know, one step forward, two steps back. I think to the same extent that you do a diet and, you know, you immerse yourself in it and then, you know, it fails. I think it would be good to see the advancement Corona brought to us positively in terms of, you know, digital education and not fully reverse them because you want to go back to the way things have been. And that's my wish.
Awesome. Two awesome wishes to start. What about you, Rafa? What's your wish for 12 months?
Corona brought with us a massive employment destruction, at least here in Spain, and also in many countries. And I think that the good thing, and there are many people who are going to be entrepreneurs because they have no more options. So what I would love is that all those people who have a dream, yes, I would like that they realize on the power of learning and get prepared before doing anything you want to do in life, being an entrepreneur, moving from to another job or whatever. I would love that people realize all the good things that learning can bring to their lives.
Thank you, Rafa. Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you, panel, for answering our questions. Actually, awesome to have such a unique set of perspectives, and really appreciate your time. I'll pass to Verena and the Berlin team, if that's okay, you guys. I believe we have lots of questions from the audience.
That's true. Yeah, it's been a very active round, which is really nice. So people are like raising questions all the time. So Monica, I'm actually handing over to you. I think you put together all the questions, right? I think we can't hear you. No, yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I just want to say hi to everyone. And yes, I tried actually to to have all like questions now on my desk here. I hope we can answer all of them, because there's actually quite a lot of questions here. So yeah, maybe we could just start. Wait, just yeah. So maybe we could start with the question, with the Q&A round now, with the question from Rajir. I'm sorry, I hope I pronounce your name it's right.
It's fine. It's Raj. That's fine.
Raj, okay. Yes, so your question was, education is very much an impact business and comes with a joy in seeing people learn and develop. This is the case with Raj. Have you always run your businesses with an impact mindset?
I can answer, because the answer is yes. Our business model at CodeClan is to take somebody to allow them to change their career, and then we place them in a job. So for us, if they don't learn and they don't feel passionate, we don't get the final stage of them being employed. So, and I would tell you, after being in the corporate America or corporate big thing, this is the best feel-good job I've ever had, because of the outcome model.
Thank you, Melinda. What about you, Rafa and Felix?
Rafa is on mute, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he is, yeah. Or maybe Felix.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
My problem here is that I didn't want to disturb, but I didn't listen to the question, and I just didn't want to disturb.
Sorry. Should I repeat the question?
Yes, please.
So Raj wrote, education is very much an impact business and comes with the joy in seeing people learn and develop. Have you always run your businesses with an impact mindset?
Yeah. In my the answer is definitely yes. If you don't think on the impact on the customers, and every single minute that they spend with you has to be important, and they have to learn, and it has to remove them and bring them some more good ideas and inspiration. Definitely yes.
Okay, perfect. Felix, do you have to add something?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So maybe we can just switch to the next question from Frida Katunda. Sorry for the names, guys, but yeah, I hope they're correct. And Frida asks, does anyone on the panel have experience working in emerging markets? If so, what advice can you give a new startup entering this market that is very different to developed economies? I think this one is a pretty good one. Maybe Melinda, you can start again.
No idea.
No idea. Okay. Anyone else? Some advice for Frida?
In our experience, we found many differences between, for example, developing our business in Spain, and when we moved to some countries in Latin America, we found that we spoke the same language, but nothing else. in Latin America, for example, this is my experience. Latin America is a huge continent, so it's not the same Mexico than Peru or Chile, but I would say that in all those emerging markets who are growing very fast, and there are many differences. For example, in our experience, nothing is stable. Nothing is stable. You can find very good results this month, and next month everything is upside down, and you have to get started from scratch and from zero once. So there is a lot of it's not a certain path. So you have to be prepared to try many things, to be resilient, to have a strong resilience, and try to understand very well your customer, because we try to move there with the same value proposition, and we made a very big mistake.
Thank you.
Raf, I did it in Scotland, and I just went 3.5 hours north. It was a completely different country.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
So
sure.
One.
Okay. Maybe we could actually in this place switch to the next question from Renata. Besides growth in online learning because of COVID-19, what do you see as the specific trends and changes taking place in the EdTech space? Also, what specific trends are EdTech investors currently keeping an eye on or looking out for? Maybe that's a good one for you, Felix, as well.
Yeah, so I'm super happy to take this. Before I answer, a big disclaimer that most of our work is in Europe. So I think we don't, like, everything I say is not necessary, doesn't necessarily apply to other regions. I think it's a bit, the question is phrased a bit tricky, because obviously the adoption of online learning is at the core of almost everything that's happening in EdTech across all the sub-segments of EdTech. Again, whether it's preschool, whether it's K-12, whether it's higher education, or whether it's lifelong learning. That said, one of the things that we are currently looking into and trying to understand is that besides the online learning aspect, is that we are seeing a massive willingness of schools, of universities to improve, to step up their game in terms of the software infrastructure they use. So the software layer, the learning management systems, the content management systems, that's being upgraded. Essentially improving communication in schools, improving the way you pay for your lunch at schools, all of the nitty-gritty parts. And usually if you would sell to those institutions, it would take you between 3 and 10 years. That's the kind of sales cycles you would look for. Right now, we're seeing sales cycles between 15 to 30 days, which is stunning because obviously there's great lock-in in these businesses. So apart from the learning layer, which I think is big in itself, we see what we call the software infrastructure layer being radically transformed over a very short period of time, because there's a lot of resources being freed up. There's a lot of willingness of states to invest because they want to show that they're doing something. So I think it's a good time to be an entrepreneur in that space as well. And I count this as EdTech as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Felix. Somebody wants to add something? Melinda?
So all I can do is talk about the needs versus the trends. I'm not an expert, Felix sees it at a much higher level. I'm in it. And I think some of the things that we're seeing, like I bought a bunch of stock in a bunch of companies during COVID because I figured by the end of it, they're going to get absorbed by some larger organizations and I'll probably double my money. Today, Slack got bought by Salesforce. Thank you very much, Ching. And why? Because I think what we're going to see in education and in lifelong learning is this chat up on the side, right? I mean, think about it. When we went to school, we got our hands slapped if we stuck a little note next to our friend over here or interrupted and asked a question at the wrong time. So the technologies that we are using to get through the shift, I think will stay. Chat boxes along the side. I was just trying to install, and we started my new whiteboard application, so I could whiteboard like I could do in the classroom, right? That's hard. Different angles of cameras, different speakers, like all of these little pieces of technology, I think are going to get sewn in. So all I can say is that we are trying to leverage the virtual world and the physical world, and any tools that we have to do that will be the trend for a while.
Maybe to stick a little bit to the investment part with Felix for a moment. I think earlier you said that it's about if a team is coachable or not, if a VC invests or not. Do you have any experiences you would like to share? If like, how do you realize how a team is coachable or not? Or are there like specific characteristics you want to actually share with startups that want to get VC funds?
So the short answer is no, but I don't want to be rude. I think it would be bad if I would tell you how you should look like to get money, because I think it gets into a direction of being not authentic, and I think that's the second trait we're looking for. We're looking for somebody that's authentic, that's coachable, and a lot of other positive characteristics that I think a lot of the entrepreneurs we work with fortunately share. I think it's, and again, that's two-sided. That also relates to the relationship we have. If we invest in a business, it's usually on a 10-year horizon. And I think, and we joke about this, that's longer than the average marriage these days. So it's really about whether you like that person or you don't, to some extent, and whether you can have a professional relationship. And I don't want to say it's a friendship, but I think it's based on mutual respect. It's based on kind of having the same, being aligned on the vision, having the same goals and all of that. So it's hard to pinpoint it, but I hope I gave you a bit of a sense of what we're looking for.
Yes, thank you, Felix. Maybe to talk about homeschooling again a bit and the trend of homeschooling. What do you think about, and what do you think about like really parents teaching their kids at home? Do you think this will be a thing after COVID-19?
I can. Oh, sorry, Felix.
No, go ahead, please.
I can only talk in my experience. I have 3 kids. Well, I have 2 kids and a baby. She's only 8 months, and we were crazy. We were crazy. It was crazy times at home. It's not. It's I don't know. I think it's not sustainable, and I think it's not good at all for no one. But this is just my personal opinion. You don't have the energy, you don't have the experience, you don't have the methodology. Parents are parents. Parents can give support. Parents have to educate their kids on values, on the way they have to behave, or they have to behave in life, ethics. But teachers are teachers. They are professionals. Parents, we are just amateurs.
Can I add to this? Because I think if you think about the opportunities of technology in education, is that you actually, for most of the things you learn, specifically if you go a bit earlier in the learning value chain, if that's a word, the beauty of it is that the content is so standardized, right? You learn English and you learn math and you learn physics. So the beauty of technology is that you can actually get access to the best teachers. Like at some point you learn physics from somebody that's great at not only the content, but also at teaching. So it's a bit unintuitive to me why you would go back to homeschooling, because I think it's going into a different direction. It's the opposite direction. That said, I think there's a massive trend in content for parents that have the problem of, having to help their kids, do the homework, do all of that. And that's been accelerated as well by COVID. Like we invested in a company that does like learning videos, and half the usage is not from the kids. It's from the parents trying to understand the content so they can teach it to the kids. And so I think that's also one of the things we're seeing.
First off, I love it, Felix. I wish you think about it. You could go get the best education from multiple places to your interest. Wow, that just, sorry, that was just a little light bulb there. Just think about the economics and the math and the entrepreneurial spirit of trying to make that all work. But wow, great idea. Hopefully someone will take it and make it so.
I think that's the idea behind Coursera. If you think about it, it turned a wrong path at some point, and I could elaborate on this, but I think that's the initial idea behind it, and Udacity and all the massive open online courses that we've seen.
I'm absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
But what would be really interesting that will happen is the people, because there's another question there about, teachers, professors, and mentors that aren't embracing this. Man, they're going to get lost when all of a sudden, everybody's calling this great physics person that does this. It's kind of like Joe Wicks in the UK. He's the best ever gym teacher now, right? Just because of COVID. My answer, though, to the question is, I hope we get to a blended model where kids get the education and the best education through technology, through classroom or not, but that the parents become part of the educational journey. And as Rafa said, many of my employees, my kids are in their 20s and above, but the ones that had to deal with, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, every parent that was my employee were just, I need to take the day off. They were just exhausted. And my admin actually turned to me and said, I finally scrapped the science. I couldn't do it. So we made brownies. And the point is that when you're cooking, that is science. That is math. Sorry, I get really excited about this. But allowing the parents to understand that when you do that with your kids, you can be teaching them fractions and percentages and all of that while they're baking cookies. So I hope we get to a blended model in the future where the parents are part of the educational process, not only ethics and, how to have good manners and all the other types of things.
Thank you, Melinda, Rafa, and Felix for the nice Q&A. As we are already a little bit over the time, I need to pass you, Felix. And yeah, thanks a lot.
Cool. Then, first of all, thank you guys for having this great panel, and thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, and I also, I was just following a bit of chat. There was so much positive feedback also from our community. So thank you a lot for sharing this great insights. And I'm sure if there are any other questions, I'm sure you're also happy to send them or to answer them probably after the event. Also, thank you to you, Declan, and the whole team from SG Edinburgh. It's been really a pleasure to have this co-hosting event with you guys. And and I think we also have a final shout out, right, Marika? Can we turn on the slides last time for the evening?
Of course.
Amazing, because actually mark your calendars from actually December 10 to 12. Actually, our friends from SG Georgia are hosting the Europe-Asia conference. So a lot of startup directors from across all regions will come together. There will be actually speakers from more than over 35 countries, a lot of networking sessions, a lot of fun, and also actually I wrote that one of the largest startup competitions. So curious about that. So what I will do, guys, I will now actually send you in our group chat, I will share 2 links with you. One is actually the event page from SG Edinburgh. You can go there and just find out more information about the Europe-Asia conference there, or you go to the Startup Grand Berlin page, and then it's the same. Actually, you can also get some insights about that. And final words to my friend Declan.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brina. Yeah, a bit of a competition. So whichever one you click on, it's up to your favorite chapter between Berlin and Edinburgh. But thank you again to our amazing panel. Honestly, actually loved the discussion and so many answers to take away. If I had an extra set of hands, I'd be taking notes. Absolutely. But thank you, everyone else. Thank you, Berlin, for being awesome co-hosts. Thank you, Power MBA, as well, for co-hosting too. And I thought we'd end with a bit of fun, if it's okay. I'm conscious of time. This will take literally 20 seconds. If you guys are up for it, and what I'll do is I'm going to put the recording on gallery modes. So if you guys are still listening, if you're up for turning on your screen, just for like 20 seconds, and we'll do a very quick goodbye.
And a group
again, yeah, we'll give it a go. It might not be perfect, but worth trying nonetheless. So everyone with your screen on, I'm not sure if you guys have something to pick up. Anything, it could be anything. It could be a glass of wine. It could be a phone, anything you want. We'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, it's fine. Yeah, amazing. And if you guys are familiar with Instagram, we're quite big on boomerangs. So we're going to give one a go, which our editing team will do later on. So just whenever you guys are ready, just kind of wave back and forth for like a few seconds. And we'll do a bit of editing later. And hopefully amazing. But in the meantime, guys, thank you all for such an amazing event. And we'll see everyone soon. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you, guys.
very much.
Bye.